I never knew silence could scream so loudly until I walked into my own home that evening. The hallway, usually filled with laughter or my wife's animated chatter, now held its breath as if mourning something not yet revealed. The faint scent of her perfume lingered in the air, sweet but corrupted somehow, a fragrance tainted by deception. "Lisa?" My voice echoed through the emptiness, bouncing off walls that seemed suddenly unfamiliar, hostile even. I set down my briefcase, the heaviness in my chest growing, the feeling of dread wrapping its cold fingers around my heart. "What now, Ethan?" Her voice sliced through from the kitchen, sharp as glass, sending chills down my spine. She emerged, eyes blazing, her lips twisted in an angry sneer. Lisa had always been beautiful, intoxicatingly so, but tonight, that beauty felt dangerous. "Is everything all right?" I asked cautiously, feeling my pulse quicken as I studied her face, searching for a sign of what was about to unfold. "All right," she barked bitterly, letting out a short, mocking laugh. "Nothing is ever all right with you, is it? Nothing's ever good enough, nothing ever suits the almighty Ethan." Her words struck like lightning, sudden and fierce. "Lisa, what's going on? Where's this coming from?" I took a cautious step toward her, but she recoiled as if my presence repulsed her. "Don't pretend you don't know," she screamed, her voice shattering the silence like breaking glass. Her fury pulsed around us, tangible, suffocating. "Maybe you'd notice something was wrong if you weren't so wrapped up in your precious job. Maybe if you cared more about me, about us, I wouldn't." She stopped abruptly, eyes widening as if she'd almost said too much. But her words hung there between us, heavy with implication, damning in their unfinished state. "Wouldn't what, Lisa?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying the fear rising within me. She stared at me, chest heaving, eyes cold as ice. "Forget it," she hissed, turning away sharply. "You're not even worth the explanation." As she stormed away, leaving me alone in the suffocating silence, I felt a darkness creeping into my heart. A storm was coming, a tempest brewing within the very foundation of everything I had known and trusted. And it was only just beginning. Days crawled by, weighed down by the tension that now filled every room, every breath, every fleeting glance. Conversations between Lisa and me had been reduced to curt exchanges, terse nods, or outright avoidance. My heart felt trapped in a perpetual state of anxious anticipation, as if awaiting the next blow, unsure from which direction it would come. One evening, returning home from work, I found Lisa's phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed insistently, the screen illuminating a name I didn't recognize, Jake. My curiosity tugged at me, a whisper of suspicion igniting inside my mind. I picked up the phone, my hand trembling slightly. The messages flashed vividly. "Are we still on for tonight, beautiful? Can't wait to see you." My blood turned to ice, and I felt the world shift beneath my feet. As I stood frozen, Lisa walked in, catching me red-handed. Her expression morphed rapidly from surprise to rage. "What the hell are you doing with my phone?" she shouted, snatching it from my grip. Her eyes burned fiercely, her guilt manifesting itself as anger. "Who's Jake?" My voice was steadier than I felt, barely holding back the tidal wave of pain and betrayal. "None of your business." Lisa spat, defensive and defiant, yet unable to fully mask the panic flickering in her eyes. "None of my business? You're my wife," I retorted, desperation creeping into my voice. "Are you seeing someone else, Lisa?" Her silence was deafening, confirming what her words refused to admit. My world cracked wide open, each heartbeat echoing painfully against the walls of my chest. "Maybe I wouldn't have to if you'd ever been there for me," she hissed bitterly. "Jake actually cares. He listens. Unlike you, he's actually present in my life." I stumbled backward, her words hitting harder than any physical blow. "How could you?" My voice was barely a whisper, crushed beneath the weight of reality. "After everything, how could you do this to us?" Lisa scoffed, a cruel edge in her voice. "Us stopped existing a long time ago, Ethan. You were just too blind to see it." With that, she turned on her heel and walked away, leaving me shattered, the fractures of our marriage spreading rapidly, unstoppable, tearing apart what I'd always believed to be unbreakable. Sleep became an elusive stranger, my nights consumed by restless pacing and tormenting thoughts. Memories, once cherished and warm, now twisted painfully in my mind, distorted by Lisa's betrayal. Questions haunted me relentlessly. When had things changed? How long had she been living this double life? How had I been so oblivious? Each day at work became mechanical, my mind numbed by grief. Friends noticed my detachment, the vacant look in my eyes, but how could I explain the depth of my despair? How could I admit my failure, my humiliation? One particularly cold evening, unable to bear the suffocating silence at home, I found myself walking aimlessly through the streets, drawn by an urge to confront my reality head-on. My footsteps carried me unknowingly toward a cozy cafe we once frequented, ironically, the place where we had first whispered promises of forever. Through the misted window, I saw them. Lisa sat close to a man whose face I'd never seen before but immediately recognized from his smug confidence, Jake. Her laughter echoed faintly through the glass, piercing my heart sharper than any dagger. They were oblivious to the world, lost in each other's eyes, hands intimately intertwined. My fists clenched involuntarily, a whirlwind of rage and pain swirling inside me. How could she laugh so freely while my heart was being torn apart? Was there no remorse, no lingering affection? I stood frozen, unable to look away from the scene of betrayal unfolding before me. Suddenly Lisa looked up, her gaze meeting mine through the hazy glass. For a split second, her eyes widened in shock before narrowing defiantly, daring me to challenge her. My heart sank further, the final threads of hope unraveling. With heavy feet and a heavier soul, I turned away, leaving them to their stolen moments. My steps carried me into the shadows of the city, each stride echoing with the painful realization that my world had changed irrevocably. That night, walking home beneath the stars that once watched over our love, I knew my journey into darkness had just begun. The house had transformed into a cold, unwelcoming shell, echoing with silence and regret. Lisa spent less and less time at home, her absences stretching into long hours filled with agonizing uncertainty. Every night brought fresh torment, my mind replaying scenes of their intimacy, imagination cruelly filling gaps left by my shattered heart. One evening, as I sat alone in the dimly lit living room, a soft knock disturbed the haunting silence. I hesitated, unwilling to face whatever awaited behind the door, yet compelled by a faint hope that it might be Lisa, ready to mend the wreckage she'd created. Instead, I found myself face to face with Lisa's sister, Hannah. Her eyes mirrored mine, sad, concerned, heavy with unspoken truths. "Ethan," she began softly, her voice barely above a whisper, "we need to talk." I stepped aside, allowing her entry, anxiety tightening my chest. Hannah had always been kind, warm, a stark contrast to Lisa's fiery nature. "I've noticed things between you and Lisa," she said carefully, choosing her words with precision. "I didn't want to interfere, but you deserve better than this, Ethan. Lisa's my sister, but even I can't condone her actions." My breath caught painfully in my throat. To hear the truth spoken aloud by someone else made it brutally real. "How long have you known?" My voice trembled, thick with hurt and betrayal. "Too long," Hannah admitted sadly, her eyes glistening with sympathy. I thought she'd come to her senses, realize what she was throwing away, but she'd just keep spiraling deeper. "What should I do, Hannah?" My voice cracked, vulnerable and raw. "How do I stop loving her?" She reached out gently, squeezing my hand reassuringly. "You can't force your heart, Ethan. But you don't have to endure this alone. It's time to start thinking about yourself." Lisa made her choice. "You deserve to find happiness too." Her words resonated deeply, breaking through the fog of despair. As Hannah left that evening, her compassion lingered, offering a small glimmer of clarity in my storm of confusion. For the first time in weeks, I allowed myself to consider a life beyond Lisa, beyond the echoes of regret that had consumed me. And though my heart ached fiercely, the seeds of strength began to take root. Reality soon crashed back into place with brutal clarity. Each moment at home became a battle, every interaction laced with tension and accusations. Lisa's anger grew more volatile, her words sharper, cutting deeper with every confrontation. One stormy evening, I arrived home to find Lisa furiously packing a suitcase. Her movements were rapid, fueled by anger and impatience. "Going somewhere?" I asked, trying to mask the ache in my chest with a forced calmness. "Away from here." "Away from you," she snapped, eyes flashing with fury. "I can't take your constant judgment and questioning. You suffocate me, Ethan." "Suffocate you?" I echoed incredulously, my voice shaking. "You're the one destroying our marriage, Lisa. And somehow I'm suffocating you." She slammed the suitcase shut with a deafening bang, her glare icy, defiant. "At least Jake makes me feel alive. With you it's like living in a cage." Her words pierced my heart, igniting an uncontrollable fire within me. "You're blaming me for your betrayal? You're leaving me, Lisa, after everything I've done for us." Lisa's laughter was bitter, filled with scorn. "Everything you've done? What about what you haven't done? You've never seen me, Ethan, not truly. You loved an idea, a perfect little picture. I'm real, flawed, and tired of pretending." Her honesty, harsh and raw, stunned me into silence. My vision blurred with unshed tears as the weight of her truth settled painfully over me. She moved toward the door, pausing briefly to glance over her shoulder. "Don't pretend this surprises you. You've known this was coming." With that, she walked out, the door slamming shut with deafening finality. Alone in the shadowy emptiness, I collapsed onto the sofa, the pain overwhelming, unbearable. Every fragment of my world lay shattered at my feet, unrecognizable, impossible to repair. As thunder roared above, echoing the turmoil within, I realized that this was my breaking point. But amidst the chaos, an unexpected resolve began to form. This ending, however painful, would mark the start of my rebirth. Days blurred into nights, each one lonelier and darker than the last. Lisa's departure left an emptiness that seeped into every corner of the house, a haunting reminder of what had been lost. The echoes of her voice, the lingering scent of her perfume, each memory became a painful reminder, deepening the wound she left behind. I retreated further into isolation, the outside world becoming distant and muted. Friends reached out, their messages filled with sympathy or encouragement, but how could they truly understand the depth of my despair? How could words ever soothe this aching void within? One restless night, insomnia drove me outside, walking aimlessly beneath the pale glow of the moon. The neighborhood lay quiet, houses darkened, families resting peacefully inside, a stark contrast to my own turmoil. I wandered until exhaustion overtook me, eventually finding myself seated on a park bench, staring blankly into the darkness. A voice suddenly pierced the silence. "Couldn't sleep either, huh?" I looked up, startled, to find Hannah standing nearby, her expression gentle but concerned. She approached slowly, taking a seat beside me without awaiting an invitation. "Sometimes it feels easier to stay awake," I admitted quietly, the vulnerability slipping through my guarded exterior. "Dreaming means reliving it all again." "I understand," she replied softly, her eyes reflecting genuine empathy. "You're not alone, Ethan. It might not seem like it now, but you have people who care deeply about you." "How do I trust again, Hannah?" My voice cracked with emotion, betraying the fear that gripped me tightly. "How do I open myself after this?" Slowly, she whispered, her words a tender comfort against the harshness of my reality. "One day, one step at a time. Let yourself grieve, but don't lose sight of the possibility that happiness might still be out there." We sat in companionable silence, her presence a quiet comfort. The night stretched onward, wrapping us in a blanket of darkness yet strangely comforting, offering a space where pain could coexist with hope. For the first time in what felt like forever, I didn't feel entirely alone. Perhaps, deep in the abyss, there was still a chance for redemption, for healing. Perhaps the dawn would eventually break through the night. Gradually, the darkness that had enveloped me began to recede, making space for small moments of light. Hannah's kindness had become a steady presence, her support a lifeline pulling me gently back toward stability. With each passing day, the pain dulled slightly, the raw edges smoothing, though the scars remained vivid reminders of what I'd endured. One sunny afternoon, Hannah convinced me to accompany her to a community event at the local park, a small step toward reclaiming my place in the world. As we walked among smiling faces, laughter, and the vibrant pulse of life, a hesitant warmth stirred within me, unfamiliar yet comforting. We paused at a food stall, Hannah's laughter genuine as she teased me into sampling foods I'd never dared try before. Her easy demeanor was infectious, gradually coaxing out my own smile, a tentative but genuine expression of joy. "See, Ethan," she said playfully, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Life isn't completely terrible, is it?" "Not completely," I admitted softly, feeling the smallest spark of genuine happiness ignite within me. "Maybe there's hope after all." "There's always hope," she replied earnestly, her gaze sincere and comforting. "You just have to be willing to see it." As we continued through the park, laughter and lively chatter surrounding us, I began to sense the possibility of a future, a life beyond betrayal and heartache. Though my heart still bore wounds, they no longer defined me entirely. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting warm hues across the sky, I walked Hannah home, our conversation flowing effortlessly. At her doorstep, she paused, looking up at me with thoughtful eyes. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice barely above a whisper. "For everything." She smiled softly, her expression gentle yet meaningful. "You don't have to thank me, Ethan. We're all in this life together." As I walked away into the twilight, I felt a newfound clarity, a subtle shift within myself, born from resilience and the gentle encouragement of someone who truly cared. For the first time, the darkness felt conquerable, the future less daunting. Rays of hope had finally begun to illuminate the path ahead. Time passed gently, carrying away fragments of lingering pain and resentment. Life began to bloom anew, nurtured by friendship, patience, and self-discovery. Hannah remained a constant, comforting presence, her companionship growing deeper, quietly transforming into something profound and meaningful. One evening, sitting together beneath a canopy of stars, our conversations wandered naturally into intimate reflections on love, loss, and renewal. The air felt charged yet serene, brimming with unspoken feelings and delicate vulnerability. "Ethan," Hannah began softly, her voice warm and tender. Do you ever wonder if everything happens for a reason? If maybe we endure hardships to find something more genuine, more fulfilling? I considered her words carefully, heart pulsing gently as I looked deeply into her sincere eyes. Lately, yes, I've begun to see that losing something doesn't always mean the end. Sometimes it's a path to something far better. She smiled, radiant beneath the starlight, her eyes reflecting my own emotions. I'm glad you see it too. Silence settled between us, comfortable and meaningful. The night seemed to breathe softly around us, whispering promises of possibilities yet to unfold. Finally, I spoke, words honest and hesitant. You've become incredibly important to me, Hannah, I confessed quietly, heart racing slightly. You helped me find strength when I thought it was lost forever. She reached out, gently placing her hand atop mine, the warmth of her touch grounding me in a beautifully fragile moment. And you've shown me courage, Ethan. Courage to embrace feelings I thought I'd buried. Our eyes met, sharing truths that needed no words. In that tender silence, a new beginning emerged, cautious but hopeful, built from mutual trust and genuine connection. As we walked home together beneath the gentle glow of the moon, I realized that life had offered me another chance. One I intended to embrace fully, without fear or hesitation. Lisa had taken much from me, but in her wake, she left the possibility of rediscovering true love, deeper and more meaningful than I had ever imagined. Months later, on a quiet Sunday afternoon, I received an unexpected message from Lisa, requesting to meet. My heart jolted uneasily, old wounds stirring beneath the surface. Yet, curiosity and a lingering need for closure compelled me to agree. We met in a small cafe, neutral ground where echoes of our shared past seemed faint yet present. Lisa appeared nervous, her demeanor stripped of the defiance she'd worn so fiercely during our last encounter. Ethan, she began hesitantly, eyes filled with genuine remorse. I'm sorry. For everything. For hurting you, for betraying what we had. You didn't deserve any of it. Her apology, raw and sincere, caught me off guard. I studied her face carefully, recognizing vulnerability and regret where I'd once seen only anger and resentment. Why now, Lisa? I asked gently, the ache in my chest softened by newfound strength. Because I need peace, she admitted quietly, eyes downcast. I can't undo the damage, but I can't move forward without acknowledging how deeply I've wronged you. A heavy silence fell between us, filled with the complexity of forgiveness and healing. Yet, within it, I felt an unexpected calm, a clarity born of self-awareness and acceptance. I don't harbor anger anymore, Lisa, I finally replied softly. I won't forget, but I'm learning to forgive. We've both changed, moved forward in ways we needed to. She nodded, eyes shimmering with tears she fought to contain. I'm glad to hear that, Ethan. Truly, you deserve happiness. We both do, I agreed sincerely, offering a small, reassuring smile. We parted amicably, walking separate paths back into our new lives. Leaving the cafe, I felt an immense weight lift from my shoulders, a quiet peace settling deeply within. Forgiveness hadn't erased the past, but it had given me the strength to fully embrace my future. A future now defined by hope, resilience, and the promise of genuine love. Walking home, I knew I'd finally closed that painful chapter, ready to fully immerse myself in the brighter story still unfolding. Time continued its gentle dance, carrying me toward a future rich with possibilities I had once thought lost forever. My bond with Hannah blossomed naturally, rooted deeply in trust, understanding, and mutual affection. Together, we discovered joy in simple moments, a shared glance, laughter over coffee, quiet evenings spent in meaningful conversation. One serene evening, as we stood together on a quiet beach, waves softly whispering against the shore, I knew the moment had arrived. The horizon stretched endlessly before us, painted with the golden hues of sunset, a perfect reflection of the hope that now filled my heart. Turning to Hannah, I took her hands gently in mine, feeling my pulse quicken, yet knowing with certainty that this was right, this was real. Hannah, I began, voice steady despite my racing heart, you've shown me a love deeper and truer than I ever imagined possible. You've stood by me through darkness and brought me back into the light. Will you let me share the rest of my life with you? Her eyes widened with joyful surprise, tears of happiness glistening brightly. "Yes, Ethan," she breathed, her voice trembling with emotion. "Always." We embraced tenderly, our hearts beating in harmony as the sun dipped below the horizon, marking the close of one chapter and the beautiful beginning of another. Looking out across the endless ocean, I realized the path I'd traveled had been necessary, a painful journey that ultimately led me here, to a love built not from illusions but from resilience, honesty, and genuine connection. As we walked hand in hand toward our shared future, warmth radiated within me, a profound gratitude for every hardship overcome, every moment endured. For in the end, every step had guided me precisely where I belonged. With Hannah at my side and hope guiding our way, the horizon before us shone brighter than ever, a beautiful promise of love, renewal, and endless possibilities.